Who wants to charge their e-bike by solar? Or whatever else you got kicking around? Let's take a look. Okay, well, what do we got here? Well, we obviously have an e-bike battery. It's a 48 volt with a charged terminal voltage at 54.6. So in order to charge this, you need some sort of a charger that can do at least 54.6. Now, generally you get a special one. They'll give you one with the bike, but it's kind of crummy. But it does put, it's a 2 amp charger and it puts about maybe 1800 milliamps in it. But if I say had this, which is just a laptop power supply I found in the techno junk pile, it does 19 volts at 3.3 amps. I can't charge it with this because it doesn't have enough voltage. Or is there a way? That's why we have this MPT-7210A boost converter. What this does is it's a DC to DC boost converter. It has MPPT, but it's not really, because you have to program it a bit. It's not automatic. It's not like just, I'll give you whatever I can off my panels and plug whatever you can into here. It doesn't really work that way. So let's plug in our simulated solar. This is just a laptop thing I found, a power supply I just found kicking around. And let's turn it on. We'll go through the screen. Okay, so what we have here is you can see that it's picking up 19.3 volts off of the power supply. So what you want to do is, if you hit the set button, see, this goes to is program 00, which I've already programmed in with a few numbers that we're going to change to fit this power supply. Because I have it set, what this solar is, I'll go to it. This is the cutoff voltage. So if the voltage gets below this level, it will start winding down and cutting off the voltage so it doesn't take so much juice that it's overpowering this little thing and destroying it. Or your solar panels, for instance. So we're going to change this. It was at 19.3. So we'll say don't go below 18. If it pulls more than 18 off this power supply, which it shouldn't because it's plugged into the wall, but to be safe, we'll put it at 18. Now what you want to set this to is, say you have a solar panel. If you look up on your solar panel, most solar panels, the open circuit voltage is like 21.6 or 23 or something like that. If you look in there, it'll say that it gets the maximum power at 18 volts. So that's where you'd sort of start from. You might want to put it a little lower, just in case, to make sure, because sometimes it'll pull down to 17 volts to get its max power. You're trying to basically have a cap on how low it can go and pull off the panel. So let's, for fun, we'll put 17.5 volts. Then you go to set again. You hit the terminal voltage of the battery, which is 54.6. Then you hit set again. Now this is the amps you want this to charge at. Now this is a little dinky thing, so I doubt very highly it's going to be able to put 2.2 amps in there. So let's put it down to 1.2, because what this is doing is this is taking amps and converting it into voltage. So it takes the amps, lowers the amps, but boosts the voltage. So the more amps you can pump into here, the better it's going to be able to boost. If there's more volts going in there, the less it needs from amps, because it just doesn't have to boost that much because it's already getting a decent voltage in there. So we're going to set it for this little dinky power supply. Then you push and hold the set button, you get to the next level. This is screen cutoff. So if you want, after a minute, the screen to turn off, I have it on 0. because I see no purpose. Like, it's saving negligible power. There's no real point to it. But if you want the screen to turn off so it saves the screen, you can. You push set again. This is the total capacity of the battery. This is a 15 amp battery. I have it on 15 amps. Now what this does is this is basically for current counting, because you see how there's a little battery icon here. This battery icon, like if you plugged it in and it goes, oh, this battery is at X voltage, and then the battery goes up to half or whatever it is, with the battery level here, it doesn't work like that. It's just simply a dumb currency counter. So if I discharge this to half and I run it and it puts 7.5, which would be half of 15 amps, this battery will show up the full, which means it put half of the battery back into it. So that's all it does. It's just for current counting. Now, if I go to set again, this is shut off. So if I want this to shut off at 2 hours, I can set this to 2 hours and then it'll stop charging. The next is lock. If you want to lock the keys, you can. Now this off is, you can change this to on or off. So what this does is at night, when this doesn't get any power, it's obviously not going to work. But in the morning, if it gets power, you can set it to say where as soon as you get enough juice to start charging, turn on and start charging right away. Now I have it set to off because I want to see what's going on here. So then you hit set again, and then you see how there's a little disk icon. Now I can save the settings if I wish. So I've saved the settings. All right. I'm going to have to break up the videos because the phone has a limited supply. So we'll get on to the next video, which is we're going to run this and see how it works. All right. Okay, I've moved the camera a little closer and I turned down the brightness on the screen because it's overdriving a bit. I think camera's picking up the general light level. So it's artificially making the screen bright. So what we're going to do is I basically have leads here. I just made a 5121 that comes from the output. This will output 10 amps and it'll take 12 to 60 volts. So theoretically, the theoretical maximum is 600 watts out of this little thing, which is pretty crazy for this little tiny battery. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to plug it in to my e-bike battery. We'll put this so you can see the screen a little better. So we have it all programmed in. It's going to put out 1.2 amps at 54.6 from this little tiny dinky laptop power supply. So let's hit the OK and it'll start charging. And the fan comes on. And you can see the volts starting to rise. And once it hits whatever voltage this is, because it's trying to get to 54.6, see, now it's starting to put in some amperage. So now we're charging. So we're up to 24, 27, 29. The voltage keeps rising. Okay, so it's pumping in 1.19 amp at 62 watts. You have your current counter here. Battery icon obviously hasn't put in enough to start climbing. Now if you hit the up arrow, you can go to watt hours if you wish, if that's easier for you. So this little dinky power supply that I found in the garbage basically is actually powering this and charging it at 62 watts. And it's only 19 volts. See, look, it's pulling it down to about 18.5. And it'll sit here and it'll charge it totally full, no problem. So what we're gonna do now is I bought another power supply just on Amazon. It's a 24 volt, 8 amp Well, it's 6 really. It's Chinese 8 amp. That is bought for basically LED lighting. You know, in a bar, there's all those LED lights that go around the wall. But it's a 24 volt, so it has a little more voltage, so it doesn't have to boost as much. Plus, it has more amps going into it. So let's see what we can get out of that. Okay, so now we have the 24 volt, 8 amp, really 6. Power supply. It's just like one of these little jobbies. I just ordered it from Amazon. It was like 30 bucks. It was like cheap. So we have that plugged in here. But now we're going to have to change some of the settings because it's only going to try to pump out 1.2 amps. So we're going to hit set. Now this is 24.5 volts, so we don't want it to go below, say, 23.5. So let's put it up to 23.5, just in case. If it goes below that, it's going to fry the power supply. So we're going to limit the voltage drop to 23.5, 54.6, because that's the terminal battery voltage. Now, for 1.2, I think I can get 2.2 out of this. Let's put it to 2.2 and see if it can handle it. Because if it can't, it'll just put as close as it can. This is a limiter. It'll never go above 2.2 amps, no matter what. Even if it can do 50 amp, it'll never go above that. So we hit set again. We'll save our settings. Screen flashes. Okay. So let's hit go. Now notice the voltage here, it's 24.4. So let's see what it drops when it's under load. Here, I'm gonna hold it. Okay, voltage is up. See how fast the voltage came up? Because it's got a lot more amps coming in here. It can pump out that voltage really quickly, and it's already starting to charge. Okay, we're pulling down to 24.08. Pumping about 60 watts out now. Climbing. 1.5 amp. 82 watts. Pulling down to 23.7. Okay, 2.1 amp. 2.14. Okay, so it didn't even hit the 2.2 limit. So we're at 2.13 amp out of a 6 amp, 24 volt power supply. So this would probably be a high-end panel equivalent, maybe like a 150 or something like that would get you this. So as you can see, look at the numbers, it's pumped up. The voltage is slowly climbing as it's charging the battery. You're getting 111 watts going in it. So it went from 62 to 111 with the new, better power supply. But what if you want to charge it in your car? Because your car only has a 12 volt system. Well, this can do that too. Let's take a look. Okay, so what do we have now? We have our Go Labs. We'll just pretend this is a 1978 Ford Pinto with an actual cigarette lighter on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug the actual car charger that came with the unit, and we're going to plug it in the output, the DC output, which will be 12 volts because it's a 12 volt car lighter. And we're going to plug it in here and see if we can charge our battery. Okay, so let's turn on the Go Labs. It's got a 90% battery, so it should have a decent voltage coming out of it. So let's plug it in. This is just like if it was your car. We'll plug it in to the controller. If I can get it in there. There we go. Okay, so what do we have now? It's putting out 12.96 volts. So what we need to do is there's no way it's going to put out 2.2 amps. And also we have to set the lower threshold. Otherwise it'll just pull until it dies. So we don't want to do that. So we hit the set button again. Now if you notice, it goes back to program 0, which we've programmed for the charger that just came off. So we're going to have to change the settings again. So it's a 12 volt. So I don't want it to go below, say, 11. Now, if your car is running, you're probably going to get about 13.7 volts out of it when it's running, and it'll be a 10 amp circuit. So you'll probably be able to push it more than just this Go Labs, but this is just for demonstration purposes, so we'll put it down to 11. I don't want it to go below 11. There we go. Okay, 11. Now 54.6, fair enough. Now the 2.2, let's put it down to 1.2. Let's see if I can pull that off. It should, because this is a 10 amp output. It can do up to 10 amps. So, but it's only pumping out 12 volts. So the voltage is very low. So it's going to need a lot of amps to boost it up to the 54.6. So then we hit set again and save it. You don't have to save it. You can just run it and it'll just not save. But I always like to save it just so it saves the settings. So here, we'll put this on for fun. We'll see what it pulls off it. So we hit go. So now it's boosting up the voltage. You can see the watt meter go as it's drying. This will also give you an idea of what the efficiency is, because this is just DC to DC. Okay, we're down to 12.3 volts coming out of the car port. Okay, 11.9. And there you go, there's your 1.2, 62 watts, and it's pulling 77 watts because it's using the amperage to boost this voltage up. And since it's only pumping out about 12 volts, it really has to boost it up to get it to 54 volts. For fun, let's see if we can, because you can change it on the fly, let's see if we can boost it up a little bit and see. Put it up to 1.25. And look, see? Then it can climb up a little bit and the watts are going up. So if you had a car and you're just driving to somewhere where you're going to use your e-bike, you can definitely top up your e-bike from this. Now it's going to take a long time to charge it from 0 at 1.21 amps, but you can top it up if necessary. All right, there you go. Okay, so we've discharged the Go Labs. I think we need to charge it up. Now, this Go Labs has a 3 amp limit. It doesn't matter how you could have a nuclear power station on it, it's only going to take 3 amps out of it, no matter what you do to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this little Toshiba charger to charge this up faster than the 3 amp limit would allow, because we're going to increase the volts on it, because volts times amps is watts. So what we're going to do is let's plug in the Toshiba just by itself to see what it gets. You know, this is just 19 volt, 3.43 amp, you know, it's just, you know, it'll take, you know, 18.5 under load. So even though this has more than 3 amps that it can do, this will do about 4. I've pulled off it. It can only do, 3.43 amps, but all that extra amperage is wasted because this will only take 3 amps no matter what you plug into it. So we're getting about 53 watts, 54 watts, because there's about 5 watts that is lost to the MPT controller. So yeah, it's getting 60 because that's what it gets. This is all it'll pull no matter what. It'll only take 3 even though this can do more. So how we're going to get around that is we're going to boost the voltage with this little boost controller and see if we can get any more out of it. So as you can see, we're getting 19.3 volts, 23.5 I've set the voltage at, which is the max volts that this can accept. And I put the amps at 3.1 just so it's a little bit above in case it drops slightly. So let's see what this does. So let's turn it on and see if we can get any higher results. Whoops. See how it says okay? Because I don't have it plugged in. So it thinks that the battery's charged. So let's turn it off. Plug it in from the charge controller and hit go again. And now it's starting to put in charge. So we're up to our 53 already. Oh, getting a little higher. So now, instead of 53, it's pumping in 65. It's pumping out 70 from the controller. So you take 5 watts away for the losses from the MPPT, and you get 65 out of it. So now I'm charging it much faster than it used to from just plugging it straight in. So this is a good way in case you have a power station with a set amperage. Like say you have a 5 amp, input on your power station. You may be only getting about 100 watts into it, or 95 with losses or something like that, 90 watts. With this, if your power station can take 28 volts or whatever voltage it can take, you can bump that up so maybe you're getting 125 in from the same 5 amp charger. So with at 5 amps, every volt extra you put in, you're going to get another 5 watts of charging put into the actual unit. So this is a good way to sort of get around power stations that have amp limits. If you want to pump in a little bit of extra, you're in a hurry, you just want to charge it up as fast as possible. Now if you notice, it says constant voltage because it's not plugged directly into the battery. So it thinks that, it's just at the last end of the charge because the MPPT controller is pulling what it needs from the controller. So when this ends, what it usually does is this will go down as the MPPT controller goes, I'm getting full, I better not, take any more charge. This will just error out. It'll just have an over voltage error, and then this will stop. So it doesn't keep charging and destroy itself. It'll just go beep, 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 and then it'll stop automatically and it won't charge anymore. So you can still, keep it on and not have to worry about it like destroying itself. All right, there you go. Okay, this is when it gets close to actually being fully charged. You see how the OK? It's kind of flashing all crazily. Don't worry, it's not wigging out. It's just getting close to the top. When it gets to the top, it'll just be a solid OK, and then there'll be no watts going in. Right now, it's just the BMS is balancing the batteries. Okay, here you go. Okay, well, we went through a battery of tests. What are my conclusions? Well, for me, I think this is awesome. This is a 10 out of 10 for me because I have an e-bike. Now, it's a bit kludgy. You got to program it. It's not like, oh, just plug it in and hopefully it'll work. You got to kind of fool around with it for a bit. But I actually like that because if you notice when I was charging off the big 8 amp charger, I set the voltage to 23.5. And as the amps were coming up, it hit the voltage limit and then backed off. So what that means is, say you have a bunch of solar panels running like a garage with fans and all this sort of stuff, you can set it in here to have a very high voltage cutoff. So it only takes a certain amount of juice off the panels so the other stuff can run. Because you don't want this stealing all the power if you're trying to run, fans and you're charging other stuff. You can set this to say, oh, I just want to trickle charge my batteries. So I just want a little bit of power so you can limit it. Where if this was automatic, it would just steal all the power. It's like, too bad I'm taking all the power to charge the batteries. So I like the programmable features in it. Now, what can't it do? This is the thing. Because this is a boost converter, it's converting amps into volts. So with that, whatever voltage you do put into this, it can't go lower than that. Like, say I have a solar panel and it's coming in and I'm getting 18 volts max power roughly, because that's what a solar panels usually generally do. Those sit around the 18 volts plus or minus a volt for max power. I can't step that down to say 13 volts and plug it into my car battery. It can't do that. It can only go as low as whatever the voltage that's coming in is. So if the open circuit voltage is 21.6 off your panels, you can't go lower than 21.6, even if it draws down. So that's really the only downside. Now, if you were in a situation like that, where you're trying to charge car batteries or whatever, if you put those car batteries in series, now you have a 24 volt battery. So that's 24 volts is more than 21.6 coming in. So you'd set your voltage coming out of here at like 26. So they charge both those batteries up to 13 volts effectively. And now you've charged your car battery. So that's the only really downside I can see to this. That's why a buck converter, if you ever seen where you plug into the wall and it only puts out 19 volts, what it's doing is taking those volts and changing them into amps. So this does the opposite. It changes the amps and boosts up the voltage. So for me, because it's only about $60, this is awesome. This will put out 90 volts. If you have a Suron 72 volt battery, you can charge it from this. No problem. If you have enough solar going in there, you can sit it on the solar charger and you wouldn't even have to bother with the wall. So what I'm going to do is I'll put some links in the description, because usually these little things, if you go to an e-bike store, first of all, they're automatic and voltage set. You can't program it. So if you get a 52 volt battery, you're shit out of luck. Plus they're like hundreds of dollars. This is $60. I'd rather get this and be able to program any battery that I get. So I'll put the links into the description, and thank you.